Hello, this is Friendly Cat, and today we will answer the question, Multirole aircraft, Newb Trap or Elite Strat? And for this guide, as much as any, I'd like to emphasize that we do focus on single player, the most difficult achievements. That means playing as minors, and we often face off against majors, which means some of the strats and the ideas we're going to use today may not work as well if you're playing a single player major like Germany or Russia, and they may not work at all in multiplayer. So before we to know more about what a multirole aircraft is, let's look at a single role aircraft. And for this game, we tagged over to Germany in 1940. I played a minor and just let the game run until 1940 to see what they are actually using. So this is a single role aircraft. It's a basic close air support. This is what the AI has as of January 1940. The only thing I've done is I've actually clicked the upgrade the Junkers. I didn't actually upgrade the MRO, I just clicked this little button right here. So they've got bomb locks on the front, so they can bomb enemy troops, so they can perform the close air support role and directly damage enemy troops by bombing them and doing damage to the org and HP. And they can also provide bonuses to friendly German troops through increased attack for the land division, so indirectly damage divisions through bonuses to German land divisions. The other most common single role aircraft is what we use is the fighter. And this is, again, the actual German AI fighter. The only thing I've done is upgrade the MIO here. And this is actually the one they're actually using or making in 1940. So the purpose of this aircraft is primarily to shoot down enemy cast, to keep them from bombing your troops. And then, of course, to shoot down other fighters to ensure the enemy fighters aren't shooting you down and aren't shooting your cast down as well. Now, there are other single-role aircraft, such as naval bombers, scouts, strat bombers, but primarily we focus on fighters and close air support. So one of the challenges as a miner is that you may start off fighting other miners with little to no air because neither one of you have the IC to really afford an air force. And then you finally get up a few factories on air. You'll build some casts, some fighters. You're not sure how many factories to put on each. And then you'll be fighting a miner that has no air. You're like, oh, I've got too many fighters. I wish I had more casts. And then you'll fight another miner that might have more air force than you. You're like, man, I really need more fighters and just a little bit of casts. And then one day, come around, you would finally end up facing off against Germany, UK, or Soviet Union, and then you're going from fighting 100, 200, maybe 300 fighters to fighting 2,000 or 3,000 fighters, and the whole game changes. All of your casts, if you put them in battlefield, will get gunned down. These casts perform very, very poorly against enemy fighters, particularly outnumbered 10 to 1. And your fighters will struggle. They won't do terrible, but they're going to struggle, and they will eventually get gunned down as well. And you're like, oh, so you have to pull your cast out of battle, and you're like, I wish I just had fighters. I wish I had all my IC was on fighters. So sometime you'll eventually say, man, maybe I can find something in between, and then you may stumble across the multi-role aircraft, because if you put a bomb locks on the front or the back, and then put machine guns on whichever module slots you're not using, so you've got bomb locks on one or machine guns on the other, or machine guns on the front and bomb locks on the second, you'll form a multi-role aircraft that can actually perform both air superiority to shoot down enemy aircraft and close air support. Wow, that's it. You're brilliant. You're a genius. What have you figured out? You've just kind of cut the knot, no longer trying to figure out how many factories to put on close air support or fighters, because all of your aircraft can now do both. Well, pat yourself on the back. You did great. But is this a Newb Trap? Are you being tricked into forming multi-role aircraft? Is this the best way? Well, let's take a look at it. Or have you really solved the equation? So let's take a look. And let's compare the multi-role aircraft. And this actually is a custom. This is just my normal multi-role aircraft. And I know in 1940, some of you are going to say I should have heavy machine guns and I should have self-sealing tanks. But really, in the 1939 year, this is what I'm actually going to be using for the most part. I probably won't have the MIO like this, but it's going to look something like this. I often cannot afford self-sealing air tanks. I probably haven't picked up heavy machine guns. Just tech in most of the more difficult achievements with a 3-slot. We just don't have the tech to make that happen. So this is realistic. So let's compare it against the German fighters, because I might actually be facing 1,000 fighters or more, or two of these. So when we look at the different stats, one of the things is range is very important for projection. And when you're playing a major or you have thousands of aircraft, we want to project. But if you're playing a minor, or more importantly, you're outnumbered 10 to 1 or even 5 to 1, you're almost always changing the mentality from projection to contesting. Now, instead of trying to push aircraft into enemy zones, you're primarily using your aircraft to protect your own zones and try to leverage the lower air efficiency or the challenges of range, where enemy aircraft are operating out of their range. Kind of think of it as maybe if you were in charge of the battle for Britain, would you be sending your aircraft over in northern France to go look for the Luftwaffe, or would you tell them to stay close and maximize our own range while letting the German fighters operate at the edge of their own range? We'd probably just stay them over England. We probably wouldn't send them over northern France to go look for I'd say for trouble, but look for the Luftwaffe. So that's how we play as a minor as well. We do not do extension, we do not project power necessarily, we contest air. So range is normally very important though, if you want to project. Air defense is generally one of the next most important stats, primarily because it seems like if you have higher air defense and enemy air attack, you take significantly less losses. After that, agility and speed matter, and of course air attack matters to the extent that you need you want your air attack to be greater than their air defense. If your air attack is less than air defense, you're going to have a harder time shooting them down. Not too difficult. You want high agility, high speed, you generally want higher range if you can. Other than that, you want to bring up your air defense and of course air attacks. You want high of all of them. And I've seen quite a few tests done over the years, and I feel like some of them just have the really terrible fortune of spending hours and hours testing, and then like the next week Paradox will send out a patch. They'll say, we've updated how agility and speed work for air attacks. And it's like, oh, great. A lot of those tests are busted. So I'm not going to try to do a redo of the test, as challenging as that would be anyway, except to say that's what we're generally looking for. High range, high air defense, and then make sure air attack is the highest, and then agility, speed. And there really isn't that challenging of a thing to make happen. But for parity purposes, that's what we're going to compare, or comparison purposes. All right, so this is a German fighter. Now let's see how our Multirole aircraft would do if I sent it up in air superiority, if I sent it up against that German fighter. Well, of course, its speed is about 5% less. That's not too bad. Now, range is a lot less, but because I'm contesting, not projecting, there's a reasonable chance I'll be in near max air efficiency or mission efficiency within my own zone. If I try to leave the zone or try to go into enemy territory, I'll have challenges, but as long as I just contest my own areas, I should be fine. Air defense, I've got 10. That's not so bad, but he's got 16, so he's higher than me. His air defense is 7. I've got 11.5. Okay, so both of our air attacks are greater than our air defenses, and increased by about the same amount. My agility is 56.4, and his is 46. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're very similar techs. I'm actually using his MIO. What's going on? I know that doesn't make much sense. But the reason is because I'm borrowing the German air doctrine tree. They have in the air doctrine, battlefield doctrine, they have combat unit destruction, which is this, and this gives close air support. If the aircraft qualifies as a close air support, it gets 20% agility. And so by putting the bomb locks on the front, this calls it a CAS, and so therefore it would get it when we reach that level of air doctrine. If we hadn't reached it, and to be honest, a lot of times we haven't, then our air superior, our agility would be nearly the same, or would be effectively the same, maybe a little bit lower. That means when we go up on air superiority, there's approximate parity. Right now I've got more agility because I've got that combat unit destruction bonus, but effectively this is parity, which means I will get shot down when I go up against enemy fighters, and so I do need to contest. I need to stay out of their range, try to push them to the edge of their mission efficiency, because the farther they operate from their air bases, the less of their aircraft enter the combat, and the better I can leverage what aircraft I have. And hopefully by 1940, I've got 15 to 20 factories on aircraft to try to replace my losses. But the important thing is that even though it's a Multirole aircraft, it's still about as good as a dedicated fighter. I like it. I like that a lot. Now, how about if I run it as bomber? Am I about as good as a close air support? I'm about as good as a close air support. I have a bomb locks. When I go into close air support mode, I lose a fair amount of agility, and that makes me easier to hit. And unlike the German casts, I don't gain defense because I don't have the dive breaks. But as a miner in the real game, I generally am not able to research dive. Unless I start with dive breaks, I'm not researching them. It's just research is just too scarce. So I'm about on parity as far. I mean, technically they got more defense. That is definitely better. But I'm about on parity when it comes to close air support. So this aircraft can perform the fighter role or the close air support role about as well as a dedicated aircraft can. That's a big deal to me. That actually is a huge deal because since I have a multi-role airport, I can put all of my lines on one type of aircraft. I can maximize the MIO, I can maximize the efficiency, and I have the flexibility. So if in the early war I'm fighting a miner that doesn't have an air force, I put them all on CAS, or most of them on CAS, to maximize the direct damage and then the damage my troops do to them. Maybe some aircraft, a little bit of air superiority to give them a little bit of malice and of movement malice, but primarily close air support. If for some reason I talk about Yugoslavia and France does a naval invasion here, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's really tough, I can dump all of my aircraft into close air support in this zone. I mean, presumably that I'm controlling this territory and France is naval invaded, I'll dump all my close air support temporarily, even for a week or two or three, and I've got 300, 400 CAS, and they will bomb out the French. Because sometimes they'll make the naval invasion and they'll start to move through Yugoslavia, and I'll need all the close air support I can. And of course, we will, I think there's an airport somewhere around here. We can't see it on this map. We'll hold the airports to keep French Air Force out of the zone. And then later on, as we fight up against Germany, we'll flip them all into aircraft, and now we'll put them into, I call it contesting, but really in defensive mode. We'll just put them into defending our own zone, make sure they maximize air efficiency. And if, let's say it's a year from now, and we've destroyed enough German aircraft, then we can start moving into a combination of fighters and CAS, depending on how things are going. If we're playing India, as I did not that long ago against Germany, I can put them up on air superiority, and then once we start shooting down the German aircraft, particularly with UK's help, I'll start flipping them over, some of them over to close air support as available. So that flexibility means, to me, multi-role aircraft alone is elite strat because they are parity. They are approximately the same as a dedicated aircraft. And to make things even better, generally in most runs, by January 1940, I have not, of course, completed the 1940 aircraft, but 6 months from now, 9 months from now, we will be creating aircraft like this. And I'll be looking on 30, maybe 40 factories on 1940, and then the whole game changes. We're going to keep the bomb locks on the front. We'll add 2 heavy machine guns, or 2 4 times heavy machine guns. So now our air attack is through the roof. So now we're comfortably over the air defense of anyone we want to fight. I'll almost certainly have picked up, I'll put extra fuel tanks because now I'm looking for range. I've got self-sealing fuel tanks, so I will be projecting now. At this point, I should be looking at 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000 aircraft. Now we're projecting. And if the enemy has a fair amount of CAS, a fair amount of aircraft, we just go all air superiority. And once they start running out, then we start switching over CAS, and we can start switching maybe 70 to 80% of our aircraft to CAS comfortably and pick up huge ranges. So that flexibility makes, again, multi-role aircraft, whether it's in a very sad state where they outnumber us 2-1, or a very good state where we outnumber them, or we have parity, again, parity in numbers. We both have 2,000 aircraft, we both have 3,000 aircraft. That makes them very powerful. Now, if that was it, that alone would make it worthwhile. And then I'm going to get into something that's a little bit silly. And I think maybe by the time you watch this, maybe it'll get patched out, maybe it won't. I don't think Paradox considers it a bug, so we're just going to run with it. And that has to do with the air support efficiency value. So each of the different mission types, like air superiority mission efficiency and air support mission efficiency, has a base value of 100%, and then it has a modifier based on the doctrine. So with air superiority mission efficiency be set at 115, it's a 15% modifier. That means when we send aircraft into air superiority, they get 15% air defense, 15% air attack, 15% agility. That's as I understand it. It's really hard for me to test that or to confirm that in game, but that's as I understand it. 15% is actually not that impressive. It's nice, don't get me wrong, but it's really not that impressive, not that meaningful. Well, in the battlefield doctrine, battlefield support doctrine, they gain quite a bit of air support mission efficiency modifiers. They get they can pick up continuous strike, which is 25%, dive bombing, which is 20%, hunt and destroy another 20%, and Germany has a nation-specific Luftwaffe. So ignoring that, the Luftwaffe, we have 165% multiplier to air defense, air attack, and air agility. And that's when things got to get a little bit silly, because now I'm no longer thinking about how I'm going to deal with this guy in an air superiority role. I'm going to just flip him over, and I'm going to turn him into a close air support. And on one hand, his agility on here will go down, but because it's multiplied by 65, 1.65, it will push well over their agility here. Even though he's going to be sitting at about 50%, because he'll be sitting on the 15% modifier, I'll be sitting at close to, I think it's 60, I think, just around 60 or so. So I'll have more agility. I'll have 16.5 defense, which is now over his air attack. Again, once we go into ground attack, I know it sounds very silly. Once we go into ground attack, then we get all of our, again, attack, air defense, and agility multiplied by, in most countries, 1.65. If you have this far deep into the doctrine, we don't pick up Luftwaffe for most countries because that's nation specific. So now we've got air defense well over their, not well, but over their air attack. We have air attack well over their defense. It's maybe twice their defense. Our agility is higher than theirs. And we're going to simply, I'm going to say shred them, but we're going to trade very favorably against fighters. Now, we still have the range issue, so we're going to still stay in a contested mode. We're going to defend our own zones, but we will do terribly well. I said, well, why don't we just run these? Why don't we just run ground support? Because if that wasn't, again, I'll use the word silly again, if that wasn't silly enough, the greatest fear for a CAS like this, or even isn't enemy aircraft, but it's actually anti-air companies. So they can be support companies or land anti-air, and as far as I can tell, they ignore all of these stats and they just gun you down. A support company will do a little bit of damage, a fair amount of damage, so they will shoot us down. So if I've got, say, 400 aircraft and I put them all into here, I may be trading very favorably against the fighters, but we will get shot down by quite a bit of anti-air. Maybe it's worth it. It may be still worth it. You can see in your game and try it and see we'll look at your losses. And actually, I'm not getting that shot down that much, but it will be very well. In addition, to make the contest work like this, or the contest, to contest like this, we need to engage in combat in that zone. So if there's no combat in the air zone, we don't fly. If you put them on close air support mission and there's no ground combat, it's like they're sitting on the airbase. So you may put them on air superiority anyway, just to start chipping away at the German fighters. All right. So that sounds a little bit interesting. I know it may be kind of hard to follow a little bit. Just keep in mind that multirole aircraft are about as good as single-role aircraft. So they give you flexibility. They give you parity. I think for single player challenging achievements, they are an elite strat. And I hope whatever role you use them in, or you just stick with your single role, I hope you have success in your games. Well, I hope you have a great day, and thank you very much for watching.